Welcome, everybody. Monday, June 24th. John Aravosis here. Aravosis Report. Hello, all. Let me get TikTok rolling. Always takes me a second. Actually, I like my glasses. I like my glasses for TikTok. One moment. There we go. I always have to change the header on TikTok after the weekend show. Oh, no, I didn't have to this weekend. Good. Funny. Thought I did. All right. 1 second here. Anyway, you know how it goes. Introduce yourselves. Bjorn already started. Good, Bjorn. 1 second here. That's funny. What do I put here? Anyway, well, my AC is back on, so that's always a good thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. Well, I don't know what to pick. The glasses, the hat, the pinch. Oh, the duck is always fun. All right. There we go. All right, going live. Boom. All right, 1 second, guys. Mirror. There we go. All right. Excellent. Anyway, yeah, so I had a fun weekend. My air conditioning went off Friday night. That was exciting. So got it fixed after paying a ridiculous amount. But, I mean, small but ridiculous. They still overcharged. Anyway, hey, TikTokers. So all is well now. My place is nice and cool. Anyway, hey, TikTokers. Anyway, welcome, everybody. Hey, Big Hawk. How are we all doing today? Hey, Ash. So, yes, at least most of the country, our weather is more normal now. Less horrific than it was before. Very hot here the last couple of days, unfortunately. Thank you, user 336, as always. Max as well for the gifts on TikTok. Jens in Sweden. Anyway, hi from Indy. Buddy, thank you, Derek, for the gift. Anyway, how are you guys? How are we doing? Yeah, do a quick introduction of yourselves. Thanks, Elizabeth, for the gift. As always, quick introduction where you are, and then we will get rolling. Just good, kind of wait a minute. This way, waits for people to sort of join us as well, which is nice. Anthony in Ireland. Jetta with a nice gift. Thank you, Jetta. Marcy in Nebraska. I never quite remember where everybody is. It's funny. Like Marcy was like Nebraska. Just, I don't know why. Don't quite remember these things. Hey, David in SF. Thank you, Richard, for the finger. Sounds like for the finger. Anyway, Pashkaren in Sweden. All right. Well, welcome, guys. I am John Aravosis. This is my Monday show. Thank you, Hey Unknown in Norway. This is my Monday show I do, actually Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, U.S. We talk about the latest news from Ukraine, get into politics overall, sometimes U.S. politics, international, kind of depends. First half of the show, I will go through the latest news. Second half of the show, take your guys' questions, comments, all of that. We'll go, we may go a little early tonight because I got plans later, but 7:15 probably. Hey, Ava, thank you for the gift. All right, let's get rolling, guys. So welcome, everybody. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. As I said, my nightly show, we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Thank you, Tarmo and Ava and Martin. Lots of gifts coming in on TikTok. The way the show works, like I said, is I will go through the news, and then second half of the show, your guys' questions, comments, etc. Please do keep the gifts coming. As you know, I do this for a living, and I do it full-time. And your guys' gifts help pay the bills and help me keep doing this. So please keep them coming. Thank you, Sewada Jane, Helen. Hard to thank you with a name like that, but thank you. Thank you, Marcy. All right, guys, let's get rolling here. So today is day 851 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. Really horrific attack in Russia yesterday. A gunman opened fire at a synagogue, an Orthodox church, and a police post in attacks across 2 cities in Russia's northern Caucasus region of Dagestan on Sunday, killing an Orthodox priest, multiple police officers. U.S.-based Institute for Study of War says it is likely the work of Islamic State's Northern Caucasus branch, ISIS, basically, but in Russia. The simultaneous attacks across the cities of Makhachkala and Derbent came 3 months after 145 people were killed in Moscow. Remember the Islamic State attack they had in Moscow several months ago, 3 months ago or so, when they attacked like a shopping mall that had a concert hall. Thank you, Simon, for the gift. Let me just make sure I didn't miss some others. Simon, multiple gifts. Swan Person, Marcy. Thank you, guys. Martin, Tarmo, I caught up with you guys. What's interesting about, classic Russia. So basically ISIS, it looks like ISIS attacked Russia again. Classic Russia, they blamed it on Ukraine and they blamed it on us because who else, right? Who else? Thank you, Ye. This is what the Russians do. The Russians just don't take these things seriously, and it's too bad because, If you want to stop terrorism, you got to take it seriously. Keep in mind that with the 145 deaths of Russian citizens 3 months ago, thank you, Martin, the Russians, again, actually, that one was particularly bad because it was ISIS again. Not only did the Russians, thank you, Yay, and Succeed for the gifts. Oh, and thank you, Elizabeth. Not only did the Russians refuse to admit who did it, right? ISIS basically kills 145 people in Moscow, horrific terrorist attack. The Russians refuse to even believe it's ISIS. They blame it on Ukraine. They blame it on the West. They say, oh, they were heading for Ukraine, right? Remember this whole story? When thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Charles. When the Russians claimed that these guys that blew up the shopping mall 3 months ago were heading to Ukraine, and the what's his face, the dictator of Belarus, Lukashenko, comes out and goes, no, they were heading for Belarus, and we stopped them and arrested them, or whatever he said. So totally screwed up Putin's entire lie. Claiming they were going to Ukraine. It's like, no, they were going to us. We got them, right? It's total crazy. Thank you, Charles, for the multiple gifts. And thank you, Tony. Well, not only that, but remember last time, 3 months ago, when ISIS did this, the Russians not only claimed it was Ukraine and claimed it the West, and ISIS kept going, it's us, it's us, it's us, right? And the Russians wouldn't believe them. Thank you, Tony, for the gift. But the last attack 3 months ago was the one that we warned them about. Thank you, adventurers. We warned them about it. We told them an attack was coming. I believe we even mentioned, we may have mentioned at the very least, thank you, adventurers. Thank you, Martin. At the very least, we mentioned concert halls. I'm not sure if we mentioned that building. We might have mentioned that building, but at the very least, we mentioned concert halls. And the Russians ignored our warning. The Americans and the Brits warned them. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Sir Peter. The Americans and the Brits warned them of, thank you, 1829, and yay for the roses. And who's that? Sir Peter, Alan, Sir Peter. Warned them that it was coming. Oh, the bee thing, look out. Thank you, Swan. But the Russians ignored our warnings. And 3 days before the attack, the one 3 months ago when ISIS attacked, thank you, Ellie, thank you, Yay, the Russians went public and attacked us. They went public, Putin went public and attacked us and the Brits, saying, you're lying about there being a terrorist attack coming. You know, you're doing this to hurt our country, and 3 days later, 145 Russians dead. Terrorist attack. The very terrorist attack that the US and the Brits warned Putin about, and Putin ignored our warnings and made fun of us for it. Thank you, Ellie. So, you know, we shouldn't be surprised that there's another major terrorist attacks across Russia. And we shouldn't be surprised that yet again, Putin and the Russians at least are claiming it was somebody that it wasn't, right? Blaming it on Ukraine, blaming it on the West. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you. Who's it? Life goes on. You know, you can't stop terrorism if you're more interested in who to blame. Not who to blame. If you're more interested in blaming your enemies or whatever, like if you have a political goal and you don't want to save your people, then you do what Putin did, right? You blame it on somebody it wasn't, because then the real guys get away and the real guys get to do it again, right? And like what Putin did with the first terrorist attack, didn't even listen to us. Thank you, John. Had he listened to us, he could have saved those people. He didn't. So anyway, horrific terrorist attack. But, you know, Russia being Russia, maybe you guys need to get a better government if these guys can't protect you and don't seem to want to protect you, you know? Anyway, thank you, John. Yay, Chazak, and yay again. And Chazak twice, I should say. Or maybe not twice this time. So Chazak was once this time. Yay is twice. Yay is 3 times. Thank you, Yay. All right. Let's keep going here. Now I missed this video. There was a horrific video going around this weekend of a Russian soldier getting fragged, basically like killed by another Russian soldier. So basically the video shows, I have not seen it. I'm going to look for it. There's no way I could show you, of course. TikTok and YouTube would probably freak out if I did this. But the video shows a Russian soldier in Ukraine getting attacked by a Ukrainian drone. He gets injured by the drone. He waves for help to another Russian soldier colleague, and the other Russian soldier comes up and at point blank range just kills him. Doesn't bother seeing how healthy he is, how sick he is. It's not like the guy was dying on the spot and he put him out of his misery. Didn't even check how he was doing. Didn't check his dog tags, or not his dog tag, but didn't check his ID, whatever. Just killed him on the spot. Institute for the Study of War had a quick little comment on this. Let me pull up their comment. The attempted or deliberate killing of a fellow soldier is unprofessional, and Institute for the Study of War has observed instances of Russian fragging, the deliberate killing of supervisors, and other anecdotes demonstrative of a callous disregard for the lives of Russia's own soldiers throughout the war thus far, both within Russia and amongst Russian troops on the battlefield. Now, thank you, Cracker, Jonathan, and Lamb Chop for the gifts. I will say, in a way, this is not surprising of Russian troops, right? We've heard all along about how unprofessional Russian troops are. We've heard about how, I talked about it on the show in the last couple of weeks, how the Russian army has basically tricked and, in a way, kidnapped Africans, Nepalese, Indians, Sri Lankans into fighting for the Russian military. And then when they get them there, they throw them at the front as cannon fodder. They just throw them at the front to be killed. They did this to the prisoners too, who volunteered in exchange for their sentence getting commuted or whatever. They just threw them at the front and got them killed on purpose. A callous disregard. And we've talked again and again. Last week, we talked about the Russians. Thank you, Louisa. We talked about the Russians beheading a Ukrainian soldier that was in their custody. Horrific war crime. We talked about the Russians executing a number of other Ukrainian soldiers last week. The video came out showing them having the soldiers surrendering. The soldiers lay down on the ground and they shot them all in the back. Horrific war crime. I mean, guys, we talked about it at the time. The Geneva Conventions say you have to give soldiers enough food that they don't even lose weight. Your prisoners, the rules are even how detailed about how much food you've got to give. You've got to give them enough food so they don't even lose weight. You certainly are not allowed to shoot prisoners in the back of the head. This is what Russia does. This is a very unprofessional military corps. So yes, the evidence of them killing each other, once again, very sad, very typical. All right, let's move on here. So this was interesting and disturbing. The Russians were behind an attack on a German air defense company in Germany, according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, this is something we've been talking about for a while. The Russians, for a number of years now, have been rather brazen in their attacks, really acts of war against Western companies, individuals on Western soil. They've assassinated Russian emigres who have come to the West. They assassinated a Ukrainian soldier in Ukraine recently. Thank you, Suzanne. And they've been blowing up factories left and right. Dozens of factories the Russians have attempted or have blown up in Europe. There was one famous one in, I think it was 2012. There were several. There were several, I think, at the time. There was one maybe 2014 in the Czech Republic that was some kind of munitions depot or something for the Ukrainians. They were getting weapons together for Ukraine because remember, thank you, Derek, for the gift. Remember that Russia invaded Ukraine all the way back in 2014. That's when the war actually started. And the Czech Republic was getting some weapons together for the Ukrainians, and the Russians came and blew up the plant, or the storage facility, which, you don't go into another country and just blow things up. It's incredible. And this is what the Russians do. Thank you, Derek, for the gift. This is what they do. It's really sick. In any case, so yeah, thank you, Annie. Beautiful little balloons. Let me read a little bit more about this. So from the Wall Street Journal. As fire swept through a sprawling factory owned by a company that manufactures air defense systems, thick, dark smoke, this is Germany, thick, dark smoke spread through a neighborhood of luxury villas and diplomatic residences. Police warnings blared, ordering people to shelter indoors. The factory has since resumed operations. In the aftermath of last month's blaze on the outskirts of the German capital, German investigators said initially they said the cause was likely an accident. But Western security officials now say the fire was set by Russian saboteurs trying to disrupt shipments of critical arms and ammunition to Ukraine. Now, what was interesting about this story is it explained why the Russians are doing the attacks. Like the most obvious one is what we just talked about, right? Which is trying to blow up weapons before they get to go to Ukraine, right? On its face, okay. Again, war crime, not war crime, like act of war, but I get why they're doing it, except total act of war by the Russians. It's more complicated than that. Very interesting. Listen to this. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, dozens of incidents have taken place across Europe, many potentially the work of Russia's intelligence services, aiming to curb arms production, pressure politicians, and sow panic. Remember, we talked about this, how so much of what the Russians do is psychological warfare. It's not just warfare. It's meant to freak you out. Listen to this. Targeting civilian infrastructure, such as wind farms and pipelines, also aims at intimidating investors as European economies are struggling. Data cables and pipelines in the Arctic and the Baltic Sea regions were cut by civilian ships linked to Russia, according to prosecutors. So basically, they're not just trying to damage weapons going to Ukraine. They're trying to hurt investment by cutting cables for internet cables and what was it, like power, I think cable as well. They're trying to chill business investment. They're trying to basically, right, we've got private companies doing all of this work. They're trying to convince the private companies it's not worth it because Russia's going to, destroy your cable next time, so maybe you shouldn't invest at all. So it just increases the cost of doing business. It scares people locally. Anyway, this would violate Article 5. Yeah, it would, except that, Article 5 of NATO basically is an attack on one NATO member, is an attack on all. But as we've talked about before, it is a political decision when to invoke Article 5, right? We don't just go to war because Russia blew up a factory in Germany, right? I mean, Russia would deserve it if we went to war, but obviously, we're not going to have a nuclear war over it, right? So Article 5, NATO's agreement for us to kick in and defend each other, is a political document, so to speak, and the countries have to get together and decide. And clearly, every time this has happened, the Allies kind of privately got together and said, all right, maybe they're doing something privately, but they're not going to publicly do this. It's really screwed up. Again, Russia committing acts. And by the way, again, it's the kind of stuff that a civilized country wouldn't do, but Russia does it, All right. Ukrainians had an update today on the children the Russians have kidnapped. As you guys know, the International Criminal Court has indicted, basically issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin several months ago for kidnapping Ukrainian children. The Russians have systematically kidnapped Ukrainian kids while invading Ukraine. They've looked for children. They want them. They're taking them back to Russian occupied territories, to Russia itself. Literally, they're taking these children as war trophies, like puppies or kittens that they find. They don't just find these kids. I mean, first of all, which would be a war crime anyway. You can't just take kids from another country just because you want a kid, right? This isn't a toilet, right? Thank you, Super Hornet. But the Russians took these kids, took them back to Russia or to Russian occupied territories, told these kids one of two things. Either they lied to them either way, told them your parents don't love you anymore, and they wanted us to take you because they don't love you. They don't want you. Imagine telling a small child that, right? The second thing they told these kids, if they didn't tell them that their parents don't love them anymore and their parents gave them up, is they tell them their parents are dead. Thank you, Ernie. Again, total lie. The parents aren't dead. And they just lie to them, kidnap them, take them to Russia. They brainwash them. They try to brainwash them into thinking they're Russians and then give them away. There was a famous case maybe a year ago where I think it was the Speaker of the Russian Parliament, one of the top guys in the Russian Parliament, adopted a Ukrainian baby. They changed the birth certificate to hide, and they've been done this on a number of these kids. They changed the birth certificates to hide that these kids are even Ukrainian, so that some of these kids are going to grow up and not even know that they're stolen Ukrainian babies. They're going to grow up thinking they were Russian and maybe adopted, but they're not going to know. Or honestly, there's going to be a whole generation of Russians adopted in this couple-year period that are going to wonder whether they're stolen Ukrainians. Exactly. Interactive Brain just said they changed the names of the kids as well. I mean, it's sickening. They're literally kidnapping children, and again, they're kidnapping them. It's not just kidnapping them. They're stealing children. It's not just kidnapping. They're stealing them with the intent to keep them, brainwash them, and turn them into Russians. I mean, it is like something out of a sci-fi movie, It's literally human trafficking. I mean, it's the most disgusting. Anyway, it's just, again, the disgusting stories that come out of Russia are things you just will not hear from any developed country. It's absolutely sickening, and they wonder, right, why people sort of have an opinion of them that isn't top notch. Some good news. Ukraine is going to receive profits from Russia's frozen assets in 2 tranches starting next week. Tranche is a good word. Tranche is a French word. It means slice, like a slice of cheese or whatever, tranche. But in economic terms, a tranche is like an installment. So if, for example, in this case, Ukraine is going to be getting some money from those frozen Russian assets that but European Union has, America has, They're going to get some money from that, like 1.5 billion, $1.5 billion, 1.4 billion euros. And the first tranche of that money is going to come next week, meaning the first slice of it. And it's a good economic term. Now that I've told you, you'll hear it again. It comes up occasionally, but it's always used in this sort of international economics. In any case, so 2 tranches, the first coming next week. Anyway, that's very good news. What else we got here? Zelensky gave an update on the Ukrainians hitting Russian oil refineries. As you know, the Ukrainians have been hitting Russia's oil nonstop, which is good, obviously. Thank you, Rose, to try to basically cripple oil production because A, it's used for the military. B, the money from Russian oil sales is used as well for the Russian budget overall. I think the number is like 40%. I'd found 40% of Russia's federal budget is paid for by energy sales. So if you're Ukraine, thank you, World's My Oyster and Rose for the gifts. If you're Ukraine and you want to make a dent in Russia's warfighting capability and their money, you go after the oil, right, and the natural gas. Any case, Zelensky says Ukraine has hit more than 30 Russian oil refineries in the last 2 years and oil depots. Russia put out a lie yesterday. I'm always careful at repeating Russia's lies. Thank you, Marcy, because part of what liars want you to do in politics or anywhere, they typically, actually in politics at least, when the lie is meant as slander, okay, when the lie is meant to denigrate you, to make you look bad, they want you to repeat the lie. Like one of the things, oh, thank you, Affleck. I missed it. Oh, I did see an Affleck, really. Was there an Affleck there? I missed it. Up. Thank you, World. Thank you, Rose. Now, you know what? It's not showing me the duck. I think the Affleck must pop up at the top. That's maybe one of those that pops up at the top of the screen and goes away. Who gave the duck? Just so I can thank them real quick. Oh, Marcy. I see Marcy. There it is. It was hiding on me, Marcy. Thank you for that. There we go. And Swan got a duck too, Affleck. Thank you, guys. The Russian lies. So Russia tells these lies in order to make us look bad. And I know what I was going to tell you. One of the things, I've done a lot of television in the past, national TV, national politics, national television, CNN, Fox News, you name it. And one of the things they teach you, thank you, Lorraine, for the rose, in doing TV in politics is don't repeat the accusation. So if somebody accuses you of something bad, you don't say, my party is not the party of pedophiles, or I don't know, right? I mean, right? You don't repeat the accusation. Because you basically are putting in people's heads, maybe you are, right? So that you would say, no, that's outrageous, right? But you wouldn't want to you don't repeat the accusation, basically. So this is something with Russia's lies. And Russia's lies are always meant in the international scene to denigrate, to defame, this kind of thing. So you always want to be careful repeating their lies. So I'm going to talk about this, but I'm not going to give you all the details because I'm not going to repeat Russia's lies. But basically, Russia's lie this weekend, and it's kind of a funny one, actually, because, thank you, Izzy, on its face, it's kind of stupid. It's one of those where I love when Russia does this. Russia's sort of expert at accusing us of things that don't matter. Thank you, Izzy, again. Meaning, oh my God, you did this. And you're kind of like, yeah, right? So in this case, Russia's claiming, oh my God, America gave Ukraine weapons that Ukraine used to attack Russian troops in occupied Crimea, right? Thank you, Izzy. Thank you, Rocco. Right? I mean, it's like, yeah, maybe. And the Russians are saying the Ukrainians, they took American weapons and then they fired those American weapons at Crimea. And Crimea, as you know, right, is Ukrainian territory that the Russians invaded and have been occupying illegally. It's Ukraine. So in other words, the Russians accused this weekend America of giving Ukraine weapons that Ukraine fired at its own territory to try to free it up. And we're supposed to go, dun, 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 right? And the Russians are great at this. They're great at presenting this stuff in a way that you're supposed to feel two things. One, shame, like, oh my God, they caught us, right? Until you think about it, you go, yeah, you just accused us of giving weapons to Ukraine. We've been doing that, well, not just for 2+ years. We've been doing that for 6 years, or even Donald Trump even gave weapons to Ukraine, right? So 6 years, okay. They're also, thank you, B. Smith, they're also trying to scare people. And some of this, which is why I'm not going to repeat the accusation. They, of course, threw in a threat. Oh, you wait and see what's coming next. And you're just like, whatever, right? It's been 2.5 years we've been helping people. Give me a break. I mean, we've been helping the Ukrainians fight the Russians. What's coming next? Nothing's coming next. This is all Russia. Again, guys, we're lucky there wasn't a nuclear threat because, I guess they made so many nuclear threats the last week, they didn't have another nuclear threat they could throw in. Who cares? I really do. I feel like who cares? Annie, you're on a roll today. Thank you, Annie. French Quarter. Well, that gift is always fun because it's a different postcard that pops up each time or many times. Anyway, just ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, whatever. We gave Ukraine. Now, by the way, the final point here is Russia's probably lying, right? I mean, thank you, B. Smith. Of course we give, and thank you, B. Smith again. Of course we give Ukraine weapons that they fire at the Russians, but they're probably lying. In this case, there was probably no Ukrainian attack. If there was a Ukrainian attack, I doubt any of it killed anybody that mattered. I mean, this is all they do is lie. Thank you, Ava. It's just, yeah. As I always say, guys, if you hear Russia accusing us of something or accusing the Ukrainians of something, assume it is a lie. Assume it is a lie. Thank you, Ava, for the Aflac, and thank you, Joy, for the rose. All right, a little bit more news here. This was interesting. So South Korea. So the Russians also threatened South Korea in the last couple of days. The Russians are pissed because, okay. Russia decided to hop into bed with North Korea. North Korea, crazy people. Thank you, Joyce. Horrific, crazy, lunatic country run by madman. I mean, madman. Most horrific dictatorship on the planet. Craziest leader on the planet. Kim, the guy who runs North Korea. Google it. Insane. Killed millions of his own citizens. The worst dictatorship. I believe it's safe to say the worst dictatorship on the planet. I'm talking Stalinist dictatorship. Everyone's afraid of turning in their neighbors, like living in that book 1984 from George Orwell, living in fear of your neighbors. That was the Soviet Union. I've been to the Soviet Union. That is North Korea. So Russia goes to North Korea. The Russians have been giving, we don't know what the Russians are giving the North Koreans. We fear, definitely worse than Putin. Oh yeah, Chris. Yeah, Chris says worse than Putin. Oh yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like it is a whole other level. Thank you, Joyce, for the confetti of dictatorship that North Korea has. It's hard to explain. That's why I say literally imagine, there's no internet, there's no television other than what the government puts on, right? Neighbors telling on each other. You see North Korean officials. I should Google one of the videos once and show you guys. You see North Korean officials and they get like 1 million people together, in the city, all clapping simultaneously. And you see these poor people, like especially the government officials, like clapping when their leader, but they're clapping going, and it's just these guys are afraid of getting murdered. They will get killed if they don't show exuberant love for the dear leader. It is. I really wonder if Assad is worse. I wonder, Juan. I'm not convinced that Assad is worse. I mean, Assad is horrific. Let me make that clear. Assad is the dictator of Syria. I think North Korea is worse than anybody I suspect. Currently today, it could be akin to Stalin at his worst. It certainly is similar to the Soviet Union. I would say it probably is akin to Stalin at its worst, but you're talking 1930s, that kind of thing, right? The purges and all of that. Anyway, horrific. In any case, so the Russians get in bed with North Korea. They get artillery shells from the North Koreans. In return, we think they may be giving them missile technology, nuclear technology, satellite technology, things that will make it easier for North Korea to basically attack us, South Korea, and its Asian neighbors with nuclear weapons. North Korea has nukes. They're crazy and they have nukes. Very bad combination. The South Koreans turned around and said, well, if you're going to give them weapons that they're going to threaten us with, then maybe we're going to give Ukraine weapons. Because so far, South Korea has only given Ukraine humanitarian aid, no military aid. Thank you, Marcia. Well, the Russians turned around and said, and of course, classic Russia again, right? Like all the empty threats. If you do that, you're going to be sorry. And it's like, oh God. And of course, I explained this a couple days ago. The Russian threat is totally empty. Why? What would Russia do to punish South Korea if it wanted to? Russia would give North Korea weapons, right? It would help North Korea's military if it wanted to punish South Korea. The problem is Russia can't really threaten North Korea and say, if you give Ukraine weapons, we'll give armaments or whatever to the North Korean military, because that's what Russia's already doing. Right? The reason this conflict with South Korea and Russia, this political conflict started, was because Russia is already helping North Korea's military. And the South Koreans got pissed as a result. So Russia's response to Russia helping the North Korean military and South Korea going, screw you. If you do that, we're going to help the Ukrainians. Russia's threat is, you help the Ukrainians, we're going to help the North Korean military. It's like, well, no, you already are helping the North Korean military. Your threat doesn't, once again, it's an empty threat from Russia. And the South Koreans put out a statement sort of clarifying what the South Koreans ended up saying basically today or yesterday is that they're kind of going to wait to see. Let me find the exact quote of how they put it. It's contingent on the depth and evolution of Russian military cooperation with North Korea, whether or not the South Koreans give weapons to Ukraine. Let me see here. Anyway, so they're going to wait and see if Russia basically does increase the relationship of how it helps North Korea militarily, and if it does, which is actually not a bad idea, to basically say, okay, we're watching. And if we see that you are increasing your sort of military transfers to North Korea, which is illegal, by the way, under the international law, all the UN sanctions, then we're going to turn around and help. We're going to turn around and help Ukraine. So I like this though, because I like sort of giving. We should have done this early on, sort of given Russia ultimatums and said, okay, if you do this, we're going to do this, right? If you do this, we're going to give Ukraine. Actually, thank you, Johnny D. Actually, this is something I've been saying from the beginning. Thank you, Cesar, for the rose. I've been saying from the beginning, we should have made weapons aid to Ukraine contingent on Russia's actions. Of course, we should have given Ukraine everything it needed, but we also should have said, okay, Russia, you just committed a war crime in Bucha. Now we're giving Ukraine HIMARS, right? Okay, Russia, you just kidnapped a bunch of children and got indicted by the criminal court. Now we're going to, provide Patriot missiles to Ukraine. But you basically make it contingent on their bad action. Think as if you're dealing with a 12-year-old child, okay, or an 8-year-old child, maybe, right? And we're going to take away your dessert if you commit genocide, and maybe you'll learn a lesson. And if you don't, you lose your dessert. But that's the way to treat these guys. Thank you, Luck of the Iris. Thank you, Dawn. Two more stories really quick. The European Union will formally begin Ukrainian accession talks tomorrow. Thank you, Luck of the Iris, Dawn, and who is that? Anne with the hat and mustache. This is considered a formality. It's not like Ukraine's joining the EU anytime soon, but it's still significant. It's a formality, though. Per Reuters, Ukraine now faces a lengthy path to accession and needs to overhaul a bureaucracy still riddled with vestiges of the Soviet days. Thank you, Marie, for the hat and mustache. Thank you, Chris, for the rose. And finally, interesting story. A fire at a former Russian electronics research institute near Moscow today killed at least 8 people. The building creates components for fighter jets, nuclear launch munitions, air defenses, and guided munitions. Huge fire at this facility. There's a lot of video online on social media. I mean, huge fire. People were jumping out of windows. Like it was, that kind of scary level of fire where people were trapped in the upper floors. Hard to know if this is related to the war. Hard to know if the Ukrainians did this or their agents. It'd be legitimate if it's an electronics factory or electronics research facility for military stuff, but we just don't know. I just bring it up because keep an eye on this. This is one of those keep an eye on this stories things. May not be the Ukrainians, maybe the Ukrainians. As always, I will show you a couple of our auction items, and then we'll jump right into Q&A. We've got auctions for Ukraine over on Discord. Basically, I get cool stuff from Ukraine, some stuff from elsewhere. Auction it off, goes to the highest bidder, and then half the money I send back to Ukraine to help them. Half the money I keep because I do this full time. That's why I ask you guys for the gifts on YouTube and TikTok. Gift memberships as well. Remember, you can do gift memberships for other people. The mods can tell you how to do that. But it helps support my work. But I will just show you a couple things. The first thing is not the shirt, but the decal. I made this decal. It's a Ukrainian Vyshyvanka. This is my t-shirt, but I made the decal. I took a picture of a Vyshyvanka, high quality picture, printed it on one of those iron-on things, and then ironed it on my shirt, and it ended up being really cool. So I am, at your guys' request, I am auctioning off the decal. So that will be later this week. The decal, remember that I've got, I can do the decal for dark shirts or light shirts. So it can either be, you tell me, the winner can tell me if you want to print it on white or you want to print it somewhere darker. Thank you, Rose. Either way, just remember it's a white background, so you'll have to cut very close to the design so it doesn't show white around it, but it'll work. A couple other things. One of our other favorite toys, this is being auctioned off. It is a really cool, basically fake Lego. Thank you, Mustard. Thank you, Luck, who is a Luck of the Irish. Miggy as well for the rose. This is a fake Lego. It is a Bayraktar. The Bayraktar, remember Bayraktar? The Bayraktars are the Turkish drones that the Ukrainians have used to such, Mustard's waving. I think he's either you're waving to say thank you, Beck, or you're waving to say I want it. Either, or probably both. These are the Turkish drones that caused so much. Okay, I did. You wanted it. Yeah, these are the Turkish drones that caused so much damage against the Russian troops. It's not a Lego, but it's a Lego knockoff, right? James got these in Ukraine when he was James, one of our wonderful folks in the community here, was volunteering in Ukraine for about 3 weeks doing humanitarian work in Kharkiv, and got some of these. And who is this? Oh, Horrible Beast just gifted horrible breast. I'm calling you a horrible beast. Horrible Breast just gifted 5 gifts on YouTube that Matt, Steve, Kirk, Susie, and Ukraine F. Putin got. Excellent. That means you guys have like special emojis, but also you can join our Saturday show for the next month, which is really cool. There he is, James Confu. Thank you, James. I always want to call you Contu. I forget your last name, James Confu. So anyway, what's cool about this is it's a Bayraktar. What makes me laugh about this? So it says ZSU, which is, or however you pronounce it, but this is Armed Forces of Ukraine. Okay. My name on YouTube is John Aravosis DC. The symbol here is pretty cool because it's the Ukrainian trident. Thank you, Running. It's the Ukrainian trident, but they drew it in the name of the Ukrainian military symbol ZSU, Armed Forces of Ukraine. I just had never seen that before. I just think that's really cool. I mean, maybe Ukrainians can tell us if that's a common thing. Thank you, Running. I've just never seen that before. Isn't that neat? So it's like the ZC, I would say ZCY if you're trying to sort of see it in English, right? Thank you, Marsha. The final funny thing about this is it's made in China. So basically the Chinese are making money off of selling Legos of Turkish drones that are being used to kill Russians in Ukraine. This thing is famous because it's killing Russian troops in Ukraine. And the Chinese are selling a knockoff to make money on the fact that their allies are getting killed. I mean, only China would come up with this. Thank you, Mary. I just think it's hilarious that the Chinese are doing this. All right, I'm going to probably let the rest of this go. Yeah, I'll let the rest of it go for now. There's a number of other cool things. It is capitalism. Exactly, Chris. You guys can go check out the rest of the items. There's 8 or 9 of them over on Discord. You can find Discord via my profile on TikTok. Look for the Linktree link. Click it. Discord will be the first thing. Click it. For you guys, much easier at YouTube, just go to the description of the show, and I included a Discord link now to make it much easier for you. So, all right. Anyway, so let's check, guys. We got the news done at a pretty quick kilt. I'm sure, not kilt. I'm forgetting the word. Speed. So let's take your questions. I should take your comments. Talk to me all. I just love the China thing. I think it's hilarious. Oh, thank you, Flower Lady. Now, what is that structure? A future encounter. Okay. I always wonder what that structure is. I am talking more quickly than normal. I had a coffee an hour ago or 2 hours ago, and I shouldn't have. I forgot to have my third coffee. And if I don't have my third coffee, I get like a headache, but I forgot to have it earlier. So I had it late. So I'm a little bit coffee revved up right now. So you are correct. Sorry, Penny. What repercussions do I think Russia will face regarding what, String Venus? What do you mean? I mean, just tell me more, like regards hockey. Somebody mentioned that before, Chris. What's this hockey final? I don't know about hockey. I know nothing about hockey. Thank you, World is my oyster, and Running for the gifts. I will say that Thursday is the presidential debate. I may do a hangout for us to watch that. What time is it on? Do we know? I'm assuming 8 o'clock Eastern time, US. Oh, Stanley Cup. Okay. I'm American, please. A, I don't watch sports anyway, but B, hockey? Guys, I'm American. Granted, I'm from Chicago, but I'm American. Thank you. Who's at 8 Eastern? Thank you, Chris. What was I was in Banff, Canada for work and skiing a long time ago. And we were skiing at near Kananaskis. And what was the joke? Because the towns didn't like it. Was it Banff and Edmonton, I think, that had a rivalry or something? And I remember the guy on the radio said something like, why is it so windy in Edmonton because Edmonton sucks. It was some kind of, it was funny. It was stupid, but it was funny. But I saw you mention Edmonton and I was remembering Canadians being mean to Canadians during my trip. Anyway, how's the fire going? I'm not sure what you mean, Jean Marquis. What is the end game for Ukraine? That's the problem. I think that's a big problem, user 558. Currently, the end game for Ukraine is a tie because we did not help Ukraine sufficiently. I think President Biden wanted a tie. It's a very complicated analysis, but I think it's been proven correct that basically Biden was afraid of pissing off Putin, but he also realized we can't let Putin win. That if Putin wins in Ukraine, it's a danger to him invading the rest of Europe, reconstituted Soviet Union, right? A hegemon. You just don't want him winning and terrorizing other countries. But Putin's got nuclear. It's Calgary and Edmonton. That's it. It's Calgary. It wasn't Banff. It was Calgary and Edmonton. That was it. Because I was near Calgary because it was the Stampede time that I was there. I think like end of May, maybe. That's what it was. Calgary and Edmonton, Dave. You're right. But yeah, so Biden was afraid, thank you, Kronos, of pissing off Putin. So Biden didn't want Putin to lose. Oh my God, he's got nukes. What if he loses? But he didn't want Putin to win because, oh my God, he'll wipe out Ukraine and then invade the rest of Europe. So Biden had this weird idea, thank you, Gator, of giving Ukraine like enough weapons to defend itself and maybe get some of its land back, but not enough weapons to get all of its land back, lest Putin get angry. And well, Biden was successful. And by the way, the French and the Germans had the same idea. They were successful. Ukraine is currently in a tie with Russia, and they're both stuck. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. America, France, and Germany wanted a tie, and they got a tie. Now what do we do? Right? I mean, now we're stuck, literally. So I don't know what we do. I don't know. It's very annoying. So we don't know what's next. We don't, because we're not interested in Ukraine. I mean, slowly we're giving Ukraine more weapons, and slowly we're giving Ukraine the ability to use those weapons. But it's like, I think we're literally, I mean, I have, in my adult life, I have never watched a quagmire create itself in real time. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Right? I mean, like literally watching it happen and predicting it happening and saying, this is going to be a quagmire. This is going to be a standoff. This is what's happening. And lo and behold, that's what happened. Very annoying. Very annoying. Anyway, what else? If Putin goes away, does it change, Chris? Not necessarily. Thank you, Brian, for the rose. We don't know who comes next. Right? Putin dies or whatever. Is the next guy going to be any nicer than him? Probably not. It's not like there's any liberals waiting to take over, right? Meaning moderates or anything. There are no moderates right now. Right? I mean, the only moderate was that lunatic Medvedev, who used to be a moderate and now is like Mr. Fire-breathing nuclear war lunatic. So that's the problem is it's honestly, and we talked about this a number of times, maybe the problem isn't Putin. Maybe the problem is Russia, right? I mean, maybe at some point after several hundred years of really bad governments, we should ask ourselves if Russia is a problem in and of itself, and it's not just the occasional bad leader. They rarely seem to get good leaders, Thank you, Numenon, for the hat and mustache. Why is China so silent on what's going on? Because China is playing a cute little game. China wants to be the new Russia as opposing America, right? China wants to be the new Soviet Union, basically. So like we had all those decades of America versus the Soviet Union, this kind of thing, right? China wants to be the new Soviet Union, the big bad guy that militarily strong, pushes around its neighbors, and is the counterweight to the United States. But at the same time, China is trying to play this game. Thank you, Love My, for the hearts. China's trying to play this game of, we're just a nice developing country. We're a member of the BRICS. We're just like, we were like Argentina until they left. We're just like India and Brazil. We're just like nice developing countries who just want to get along. Except, no, you're hegemonic dictators just like Russia, just like the Soviet Union. And by the way, you're a communist dictatorship. You're not nice at all. Thank you, Numenum. Thank you, Love My. So that's why China then is playing two different games. China is trying to be like, oh, world, Africa, love us. We're such nice people. And at the same time, China's like rubbing its little knuckles, planning to be the next Soviet Union. So, Amanda's saying 9 o'clock Eastern. Does somebody, you guys want to just double check or triple check when the debates? It starts at 9 o'clock. It's 9 to 11. Ugh. Thank you, Sean, for the gifts. I was a little afraid of that. Thank you, Tony, for the TikTok gift. I got Numenon. Love my. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Thursday at 9. Ugh. Okay. 90 minutes. All right. I would imagine I'd probably do a show. I'll probably do a hangout that we can watch the debates on Thursday night. Thank you, Jane, for that. We can hang and see how it goes. I mean, typically these things we're kind of watching together because the only thing I don't like doing with debates and things is we're watching the debate. So I can't really do commentary until it's a commercial or something, right? Because during the debate, I need to be watching, so I can't be looking at the screen, and you want to be watching, so you don't want me talking over it. So I think yeah, exactly, Ash. It should be fun. I think we'll, that's true. I could do a pre-show. That's not a bad idea, Gunther. Let's see. I think there's a very good chance we'll do Thursday at 8:30 in the evening, Eastern time. So Washington, D.C., New York City time. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. You should be worried about Trump staying up late, PC Noel. I mean, the Trump, by the way, kind of screwed things up. For the last couple of weeks, he was putting out this message that, oh, Joe Biden is so weak. He needs drugs to stay awake. That's a stupid thing to do before a debate. Going into a debate, like a political debate, thank you, Marcia, for the gift. You want to tell people your opponent is God. He's so good. He's such a good debater. It's going to be scary, right? Because you want to set expectations very high, so all your opponent can do is fail. You don't tell people, oh, my opponent is so sleepy and tired and has dementia. He has to take drugs to stay awake. He'll never be able to survive, because then all Biden needs to do is survive. And people go, he wasn't that bad, right? So Trump suddenly changed his tune a couple of days ago and now is saying, oh, Biden, he's such a good debater. And it's like, but again, this is Trump. His people know this. His people know this. His people tell him, and Trump is Trump. So Trump just like yaps and screws it up. Now, but it was funny because somebody mentioned, it was PC Noel mentioning, will Biden be awake for the debates? Ha ha ha. Keep in mind, Trump was the one that would get to work at noon. See, these are things Democrats, this is why I say Democrats are so bad at this. Trump was the guy who got to work at noon every day. Remember? He wouldn't get downstairs until noon. He was in his bedroom he'd wake up late. He'd watch TV. He'd eat. He had somebody doing his hair for like 3 hours, and he wouldn't come down until noon to start working. And then he'd finish working at like 6 o'clock in the evening. And Democrats being Democrats, nobody talks about this, right? They all talk about, oh, is Biden up for the job? Trump never even did the job. And everyone's like, la, la, la. So anyway, this is the first debate, Jorge. Yes. Yep. Anyway, what else? He's stuck on Twitter. That probably is true. Trump probably was on Twitter all morning. What are they saying? I've got to respond, Anyway, golfing. That's true. There's all the fake golfing, all the golfing he was doing. I do not think this ends in a world war because Russia is desperate to avoid a world war. Always important to remind folks, Russia isn't doing well in Ukraine, right? I mean, it's not clear how Ukraine wins. It's also not clear how Russia wins. That's the thing. Russia's not doing well in Ukraine. They're stuck. They're in a quagmire. If you're in a quagmire and it's not clear how you're going to win the war, the last thing you do is say, if you're Russia, I'm in the third year of a war against a little old Ukraine that was supposed to take 3 days. I'm in the third year of this war. Let's declare war on America too. But let's not just declare war on America. Let's declare war on America, France, Great Britain, Norway, Poland, right? Germany, throw in Italy, throw in all the other big countries. Sweden, Finland. Like, if you're having a hard time beating Ukraine, are you really going to declare war on 32 additional NATO countries? No, you're not. That's why I always tell you this thought about, is there going to be a world war or whatever? Russia is desperate not to have a world war because they're in trouble in Ukraine right now. They can't figure out how to get out of Ukraine. They can't figure out how to win the war in Ukraine. They don't want 32 more countries to go to war with. That would be crazy. And not only that, but we would destroy them. I mean, the U.S. military alone would destroy Russia. Alone, let alone the rest of Europe, right? And Canada. Don't want to forget Canada. But the U.S. military, U.S. Air Force would destroy Russia. Absolutely, the U.S. Navy destroy them. Well, no. Why do people fearmonger? I mean, the Russians fearmonger. The Russians want to scare you into thinking there's going to be a war so that you don't help Ukraine. It's like any other bully. They want to scare you into thinking there's going to be a war so that you say, okay, we'll stop. We'll stop helping Ukraine. We'll give you Ukraine. Take Ukraine. And maybe you'll leave us alone. If we appease you and give countries to you, maybe you'll stop being so mean. Except that's not how it works. You appease bullies and then it's like a shark with blood in its mouth, right? Then it wants even more. But that's why Russia does it. It's, again, remember, Russia lies, Russia bluffs, and Russia's playing a psychological game. That's all Russia does. They're playing a psychological game to try to scare you out of supporting Ukraine. That's it. Anyway. I mean, Russia's a paper tiger, but, Mike, Russia does have weapons, right? They've got men. They've killed a lot of Ukrainians. I mean, they can cause a lot of damage. But in some ways, they are a paper tiger. They think they're the Soviet Union, and they're not anymore. They're Lola, who was a showgirl. But that was 50 years ago, or however, 30 years ago, however many years it was. But I think that's sort of the comparison of Russia, except Lola still has nuclear weapons, so she's dangerous, but she ain't that pretty showgirl she was 30 years ago. And Russia is kind of drunk and old and still thinks she's a showgirl. Right. Drinks herself blind. Exactly, Gunther. She's lost Poland, she's lost Ukraine, and she's lost her mind. We have to write that song. I may have to rewrite that song. She lost her Poland, she lost her Ukraine, and she's lost her mind. Anyway, what else we got? What else we got going? My dog. She still woke me up. I'm ready to kill her. She's waking me up early. And I'm like, I'm going to absolutely kill her. She got in her head this idea that like she can wake me up half an hour early when she's hungry. And I'm like, gonna kill you. So anyway, at the Copacabana. Yeah, still Moto, because this is a show about Ukraine. Keep it up. You're going to meet the mute button. Keep it up. This is when you cross over and become trolly. Don't be trolly, because you're going to get muted. That was a bitchy comment. We don't like bitchy. I don't know how it works. All right, Moto, you're gone now. You can come back another time, but you're gone for today. Don't be trolly. Do American satellites guide attack them? No idea. No idea. I don't know. Don't know. Although I was just going to say it probably is Musk, though. Maybe it is Starlink. Yeah, but I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know, JSL. I don't know how Ukraine gets out and saves face. I mean, I first of all, JSL's question was Ukraine's becoming a quagmire for Russia. How does Putin get out and save face? First of all, I don't think it's our job to save Putin face. Thank you, Jeremy. World War II, we weren't trying to save the Germans and the Japanese face. We were trying to beat them. We should be beating Russia here. We shouldn't be trying to save them face, right? This isn't some weird border conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and it's complicated by years of history, and nobody quite knows where the border is. That's not what this is. This is Russia is upset that it's no longer the Soviet Union, and it wants its hostages back. It had Ukraine hostage. It had Poland hostage. Well, Poland was an Eastern European hostage. Ukraine was literally a Soviet hostage, and it wants the hostages back. It's upset that it no longer has an empire like it used to. That's what this is. So, I don't think Russia. I think when somebody tries to kill you, you don't care if you shouldn't care if they save face. You should catch them and beat them, right? Thank you, Stephen. That's the way I feel with Russia and Ukraine. Why I don't think Putin doesn't need to save face. With Afghanistan, we didn't have the Russians save face. We beat them. We beat them. Why does Putin need to save face? I mean, it did not start as a NATO border thing at all, Chef Book, not at all. It started as Putin wanted to grab Crimea for cultural reasons and military reasons and everything else, and he invaded and took it. That's how it started. And he wanted to grab Eastern Ukraine, literally. It was about Russia wanting to reconstitute the empire is why it started. And Putin couldn't handle the fact that on his border was a democracy. Putin could not handle the fact. It was dangerous for Putin as a dictator. This is true, actually. It was dangerous for Putin as a dictator to have Ukraine as a functioning democracy on his border, because Ukraine, the Russians keep telling the Ukrainians and the Russian people, oh, Ukrainians are our brothers. They're just like us. They just don't know that they're Russians. They're really Russians, right? The Russians keep saying about the Ukrainians. Ukraine isn't even a real country, the Russians say. It's actually Russia. That's why they're invading and taking it, right? Well, if you tell your people that Ukraine isn't even a country, it's actually Russia, and those Ukrainians live free, they don't live under a dictatorship, they've got a good economy, right? I mean, right? They have a democracy, they can vote. LGBT people now have increasing numbers of rights. I mean, women have increasing numbers of rights. If Ukraine is really Russia and they're really Russians and they're a free functioning, effective, efficient democracy, what does that mean for Russians? That means maybe the rest of the Russian people can have a democracy and not live under a dictatorship and have a better standard of living and have a better way of life, right? Ukraine's existence was, ironically, an existential threat to Russia, not because Ukraine was threatening Russia, but because Ukraine's existence as a free and independent country of Slavs threatened Russia, because Russia's a dictatorship and Russia can't afford to have people that look like Russians on their border, many of them who speak Russian, who are free, because it'll tell Russians maybe I should be free too, right? There you go. There you go. Baker, I don't know. I don't know that anybody's joining NATO anytime soon. Baker asks, what country do you think will join NATO next thanks to Putin? I don't think anybody's coming anytime soon, you know? I mean, Ukraine is kind of next in a way. I don't know what's going on with the former Yugoslavian countries. Is anybody still waiting? I mean, I'm sure there's some still waiting. Well, Serbia, forget it. Serbia's not in NATO, right? I always forget sort of we had this discussion the other day, which of those countries were in NATO. Yeah, but Georgia's sliding back into dictatorship, right? They're not going anywhere. I don't know if any of the former Yugoslavs, Argentina wants in, except Argentina can't be in because it's not in the North Atlantic. South Atlantic, right? Dallas, I don't think Russia's going to do anything because I think Russia's lying. It's a big lie. I couldn't care less. I mean, what are they going to do? Right, this is about Russia claiming, oh my God, American weapons were used by the Ukrainians and they hurt Russians. What are they going to do? Kidnap Ukrainian children in response? Already done that. What are they going to do? Bomb Ukrainian civilians every day? Already done that, right? I mean, I'm just not sure. Like, I don't really care about Russia's threats because they're always empty threats. It makes me laugh. We've got somebody who wrote, you are a big liar. Lie, L-I-E-R. Liar. Are you a liar? Do I lie? I'm a liar. Oh my God. It makes me laugh. Yeah, Moldova could be on the list soon. Georgia, the problem is Georgia's stepping backwards now, which is not good, you know? So that's not good. Liar. I love when they make grammatical errors that are really funny ones too. And by the way, they always have problems with. Actually, the other thing the trolls always say is they usually say lair, L-A-I-R. That's perfect, Swan. That's why Boris is actually, I put Boris there for this very reason, so people could use it when the trolls come up. But I wasn't sure how many of the SNN people on TikTok recognize the Boris and Natasha emoji that I have there that Swan just put up. Thank you, Macabre. It was a wonderful, for you Europeans, Boris and Natasha, you've got to Google. It was a wonderful, talk about the Cold War at its finest, okay? Boris and Natasha it was Rocky and Bullwinkle. And it was a special session, like a special characters that would come into Rocky and Bullwinkle. And it was like the 1960s. And Rocky and Bullwinkle were a flying squirrel and a moose. And the moose was kind of dumb. The squirrel was very smart. The show was written, it's a cartoon for kids, but written for adults, basically, like very, very much, almost like Simpsons, like very much written for adults, right? And the villains in the kids' cartoon in the 1960s America, the villains were two Russian spies, KGB spies. Thank you, user 754. named Boris and Natasha. And Boris was this little man, this little Russian man, short with like a black hat and a mustache. Natasha was this big, tall Russian woman. It was the funniest damn thing. So did they show it into the 80s? Natasha was hot. I will give them. Natasha was hot. Their boss was Dear Leader. But I mean that we literally had cartoons, and like Max Trax just put up the emoji on YouTube, on TikTok. Oh, I did put it for YouTube. Okay, Chris just put it on YouTube as well. So you guys can see it's the little guy of Boris. But I mean, it's kind of funny in a way because, we did have propaganda. I mean, the fact that a children's cartoon in the 1960s America, thank you, Annie, in 1970s America had Russians as the villains was pretty bad. I mean, it was deserved, but it was still pretty bad. Thank you, Annie. Spy versus Spy. Yeah, but wasn't that Mad Magazine or whatever? Emil, the Ukrainians will not be friends with the Russians in the future. No, they've destroyed it. I mean, the Russians, there were sort of opinion polls showing like Ukrainian attitudes towards Russia before the war and now. I mean, the Russians, ironically, the Russians created the very hatred they claimed they were afraid of. Oh, we're so afraid of Ukrainians. They don't like Russians, blah, blah, blah. So they invaded and they killed all the Ukrainians and kidnapped their children. Well, guess what? Ukrainians really hate them now. Yeah, really bad. Yeah. I mean, they'll be lucky in a few generations, but what's going to have to happen? It's going to have to be like Germany and Japan, right? I mean, thank you, 1829. Germany and Japan, post-World War II, they lost. The countries got overthrown in essence, right? New democratic governments came in, right? So Russia needs to be literally overthrown and have a new democratic government come in. The old leaders have to be just gotten rid of for I think, Ukraine to be able to say, okay, this is no longer the big bad country on our border that destroyed us, right? We'll go a couple more minutes and then I'm going to go. I wanted to go early tonight. Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, Martin says his friend spoke Russian before the war and now will only speak Ukrainian. Vlad was telling me, actually, Vlad and Yulia was saying this too. Before the war, like a lot of them spoke Russian. And she even said like it was, Vlad told me this, I think, that it was considered kind of snotty to speak Russian. Like to speak Ukrainian was considered low class. I think Yulia even said this, like she'd be out with friends and when they were kids and everybody like would try to speak Russian because it was what the more educated, smart people did. That's changed now, that's changed now. I know nothing about Italy qualifying versus Croatia. Is that hockey again? Exactly. Russian was spoken in the East. I mean, it still is spoken in the East. So Yulia, I thought Yulia was the one who brought that up as well. Yeah. She may have been the one talking about being a kid. Actually, I think she mentioned being at Starbucks in Kyiv once, maybe before the war. And maybe she was speaking Ukrainian because she's from Western Ukraine. And the woman behind the counter was speaking Russian and was really snotty about it. And she was like, I'm from Western Ukraine. We don't speak Russian. I mean, like, that's not what we speak, right? And Kyiv is not exactly Russian speaking necessarily. And the woman was really snotty with her because, again, the proper people spoke Russian. Well, that went out the window clearly. Now you're talking European football. Don't confuse me. Don't confuse me. Anyway, how different are the languages? You'd have to have a Ukrainian tell you. I can tell you that as somebody who studied Russian, I find Ukrainian very confusing. I thought the languages would be closer. It's very confusing to me. I will say this. Languages tend not to be that close. I mean, like I speak French and Spanish, or French, Spanish, and Italian. They're not that close. I mean, you can learn Italian if you speak Spanish and French fluently, but that's already a bit of a hike, So it's not surprising that languages that are close are still not necessarily close, But if you're a native speaker, you can understand. But I mean, it's weird, I think, for us as English speakers, because we don't have any languages that are close, but not that close. Like, right? We don't have languages close to English. We just don't. We have English, and we got the Australians, the Canadians, the Brits, New Zealanders, but they all speak English. Even South Africans, the accent's funny, but it's still pretty much the same. It is the same. I shouldn't say pretty much. It's the same language with a few different words like pants. Which always makes me laugh because we say pants meaning trousers in English, and the Brits pants means underwear, which always makes me laugh. So there's different words and things, but yeah, but not significant enough between like British and American and Australian. No, I mean, we understand each other perfectly, because it's the same language. It's just sort of broke into dialects. Maybe is the best. Even I don't even know if we'd say dialect. Would we? Thanks, Chris. Would we say a dialect even for different, like British English versus American English? I don't even know that it's a dialect because it's not different enough. It's not like we have to struggle to understand the Brits. We don't. The accent can be an issue. And the accent for the Australians, usually not, but the accents can be an issue. Like South African, again, depends. But the language just isn't different enough. Frisian, where is that, Gunther? I recognize the name, but where is that? Is the closest language to English? Where is that? Waiting for Gunther to tell me where Frisian is, or the language, I mean. Northern Netherlands, or Northern German and Netherlands. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Huh. Interesting. So British versus American English is considered dialects. Okay. But they're such close dialects that it's not like, I mean, for example, when I think of dialects, I think of Italy, right? Like, Neapolitan versus, Sicilian versus, and I mean, those languages, forget it. I remember I was fluent in Italian, and I had I'll tell you this funny story and then we're going to hang up because I got to go. I was in Greece when I was like 23, and we met all these Italians, wonderful group of Italians, these Greeks, and we're all kind of, and I spoke Greek and Italian and English. So I was kind of translating for everybody. And there was one guy from Naples, and I'm able to talk with all the other Italians from Rome. We understand each other. I mean, I'm fluent. I'm not native, but I'm fluent. We understand each other fine. And the guy from Naples would talk to me, and I'd literally look at him, not understand a word, turn to the Roman, and then the Roman would tell me in Italian what the Naples guy just said, and I'd answer. And finally, the Naples guy got so pissed off. He was like, oh, because I tell you something in Italian, and then he tells you in Italian, and then you understand, but you don't understand when I say it. And I was like, dude, not a word this guy spoke made any sense to me. That was a different dialect. I mean, that's why. So when I think of dialects, I think of like Italy, where it's such a different language. It's such a different language. It just kind of, yeah. See, I love the trolls. I fucking love the trolls. You're using the wrong talking point, Chris. One of our Russian trolls is here. Do your research. Stop spreading misinformation. We're talking about Italian dialects. See, the Russian trolls come. I told you guys, and they have talking points, and they read off the talking points because they don't. First of all, it's probably a computer. My guess is this is ChatGPT visiting us. It's probably not even a person. But they literally throw talking points from a piece of paper they've got or from a computer program, and they don't care. And my favorite is, though, they usually get us at the end of the show where we're talking about something else. You're lying. Like that's disinformation. Oh, come on, mods. You're not going to get this guy? I'll get him. There he is. That's disinformation. We're talking about Sicilian dialects. But okay, you be you, troll. You be you. All right, guys. I'm going to go. I don't feel like doing the summary tonight. I got plans tonight. Finally, first time in a long time. You're in England. You can't understand a Scotsman. That's a different question. When you get like way into Scotland, we have a hard time too. Like I watched those YouTube videos showing Scottish people swearing. No chance. Absolutely no chance. It's like blah, 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 blah. Cockney, same thing. Wouldn't understand Cockney, but I never understand some of that. If it's an accent versus language, that's the thing I never quite knew. Like Cockney or Scottish. I never know, like, is it the pronunciation or is it the words that are so different? Like if they were pronouncing it in a way I understood what I understand it, or are the words also different too? Well, Scots itself is Gaelic, isn't it? Or Gaelic based or Irish based or something? Isn't there some connection there? So that's part of the problem, right? The toga party went well. I have a picture of me in the toga on the phone. I'm not going to show you. Of course, I'm using the phone as my camera anyway. But it was fun. It took me half an hour to get the friend's birthday, had a toga party on Friday. It took me half an hour to figure out the toga. Not easy. And boy, the whole party, you're sitting there like tucking this thing in so it doesn't fall off. I thought, are you sure about that, cutest Linka? I thought Scots had a relationship with Irish. You sure? There's a linguistic connection there. I think there's some linguistic connection there. I mean, if you're Scottish, I don't want to get you wrong, but Scots speak a version of Gaelic. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Well, I said Irish, but meaning Gaelic. I used to call it Gaelic, and my Irish friends always corrected me and said Irish when I would say Gaelic. So now I try to say Gaelic to be, Scottish Gaelic and Irish Gaelic. Okay. Okay. But are they not at least connected in some ways? At least back in the origins? Sorry, looking for a quick answer. In Wales, they speak Gaelic also? Okay. Yeah, Welsh English, I like the Welsh accent. Scottish Gaelic, Scots is I see. Scottish Gaelic and Scots is different. That's what I didn't know. Okay. I thought Scottish Gaelic was the other Scottish language. I didn't know Scots was its own thing. Okay, that's why. Okay. Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, Welsh is close to Breton, which I know of Breton, of course, but I've never heard it other than Cunyaman, which is a very strangely written word. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off because I got to run and do some stuff tonight. Good to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the gifts. Sorry to end, early. It's been an hour and 15, but usually we go a good hour and a half. But thanks for joining us, guys. I will be back tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. So join us then. We'll be talking about Ukraine as always. And I think, like we said, thank you, Mark. I think we will do a debate show Thursday night. So 8:30 Eastern time, US. That's 8:30 p.m. Washington, D.C. or New York City time. I think we'll do one. Yeah. Again, it's not easy, to sort of do it, but because I don't want to be talking during the show. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Super Hornet. But we can see. All right, guys. Have a good night. I'm gonna head out. I will see you guys later. Thank you. All right. Good night, all. Burp. All right. Good night, all of you.